And if you guys are ready, we can start the talk. So I'll speak with the artists, and then we'll have some opportunities for you all to be able to ask them questions, and then we can kind of wrap things up for today. To my immediate right, Noreen Smith. Noreen is a multidisciplinary artist from Baltimore whose work is a deeply personal reflection of her experience as a Black woman. Her art is intricately woven with the threads of her life's journey, drawing inspiration from trailblazers like Kara Walker, Ramir Bearden, and Noreen's creative roots are grounded in a family tradition where women crafted not only for recognition, but for the sheer joy of creation. And this legacy instilled in her belief that art is a birthright, a universal language that connects and communicates on the most profound levels. And she views her work as a powerful tool for fostering understanding and empathy and connecting people across diverse experiences. So let's give a quick round of applause to Noreen Smith. And then on my far right, we have Mark West, who's also a Baltimore-born visual artist, historian, and curator. And through his paintings and assemblage work, he uses trees, lights, furniture, and other materials to create full scenes designed to help viewers escape reality and reimagine their existence. He also paints jet black people in humanistic dramatic settings inspired by African art extending 3,000 years ago. Since most of history is erased, Mark repaints those characters in powerful and meaningful depictions to pay homage to ancestral Africans and in the process create new stories. So let's give it up for Mark. Really quick from the audience, can a few people raise your hands and kind of tell me a couple of words that might come to mind when you all have been viewing this work in this context? You can just shout it out.
Freedom, passion.
Freedom, passion, okay.
Spirituality.
Spirituality, okay. Any other words, anything else coming up?
Excellence.
Excellence, faith, okay. Oh, yeah, those are all words that I would associate with this work as well. So my first question for you all is, both of you have very interesting backgrounds and different entry points into this fine art world, if you will. So I just wanted to maybe can you all, well, and the reason I'm asking is because the nature of your work, collage work, assemblage work, these are very accessible mediums. They can be found, again, for much of the work, found around your immediate environment. They can be portable, and accessible even from a cost standpoint. And I think that's really powerful because you all are able to create these extremely dynamic images and have a very thoughtful process, with your creative practice. So I just want to hear, if you will, can you guys maybe just give a brief explanation into the entry points that you all found that kind of began this journey in art and image making? Either one.
Okay, so the first thing I'm thinking of is something that Devin Morris, he's another artist that does assemblage, was talking about how he spends a lot of time looking down. And I find myself always in this position looking for things that stick out to me. In this piece here, I was leaving a colleague, Ainsley's house, and I found this window on Greenmount when I was coming down here. And I always like to look at things that are made with natural elements, so wood, metal, glass, rocks, all types of stuff. And I made this painting and this painting during a time when I was living in Brazil previously, and I had to come back to Baltimore because my visa closed. So I wasn't working here, I didn't have many resources. So I had to look, I was always looking down at what I saw around. I was living in my grandma's house. I pulled a lot of things off of her wall that was there since my childhood. She's been in the same house for 40 years. So it was always a lot of different things that I could pull around. This chair, somebody in my family broke that chair. I can't tell you who. But that was a chair that was sitting in the back of my backyard for a few years. And my grandma lives on Glens Falls, which is a tree-lined street. So when I was thinking of what I had in abundance of, it was trees that lined the street. So that's part of why I decided to work with the trees. It's something that gives a bit of longevity to the pieces because there's always wood around for me to pull from.
So for me, just in general, I come from a family where the women are very creative. I watched my mother for many years just make all kinds of things. I mean, mommy's making wigs, mommy's covering furniture, mommy's painting, mommy's making dresses, mommy's creating. And so it's just something that we do. And so actually, I was just living, just creating, just making. That's my entry point. However, during COVID, I was searching for how to express myself creatively. I was more isolated, and I wasn't sure of what my expression really would be now. How do I uplift the voice of the things that I'm feeling? How to express the traumas that I didn't even realize I had that were now surfacing, now that we're all isolated from each other and I don't have as many distractions. The one thing that I consistently did was I ordered comic books and I read comic books. And it was very interesting in that search for my creative self because that looked wild. I was at Home Depot. I had some metal pipes. I had some bottles. What am I going to make? It was real great. And then one day I was like, you know what? I love collage, and I'm going to go back to the thing that somehow always seems to be there as like, come on, girl, you want to do some collage work, right? I'm your friend, come on. And so I decided I was going to do something that most comics would never do. I cut into one of my books and decided that I was going to create some collage. And when I did, something happened. One, I relaxed. I lost myself in it. I spent time that I didn't realize I was spending doing something that I love. It was exactly what I was looking for. And when I looked at it, it was a shape that I couldn't have planned. So the organic shapes that happen in my pieces are something I could never plan. And I just kind of let those happen, just like I did that day. It's just a release. It's the relaxation at the intersection of relaxation and creativity, that thing that I was looking for. And that's just something that hasn't let me go. It just feels good. And it allows me the right amount of escapism, right? Not like, let me get out of here. More so than like, let me take a spiritual nap. And let me just let the work move through me. So I'm a willing participant in the conversation. This is what I often say, and I mean it, the conversation with the materials that I'm working with. That's what I ended up finding, materials that wanted to be handled and knew exactly what story needed to come out of them. And I found myself just opening up to being honest. And so it's very interesting when people look, I'm saying a lot, I'm chatty.
No, you were
You asked me one question, I gave you like 3 answers. But I find myself, not just talking about it, but I find myself sometimes when people are looking at the work, I'm thinking to myself, oh, now you know my business, right? And actually, initially, I was also thinking, because it's the shared experiences of other Black women that I know, it was just like, ooh, and now you know my homegirl's business too, right? Am I sharing dirty laundry was a real concern. And actually, no, it was just healing and freeing up that was happening. And so I really just feel blessed to be trusted with the ability to do that.
I think especially relating to the theme of the show, which is around healing, but also around, you guys can come in, but also with an emphasis on the ways in which you all are choosing to do that, which, again, through your mediums, collage and assemblage, I think that, and one of the reasons that the symposium earlier today was called Material Thinking is because a lot of what you all are doing is exploring these materials in different ways. And when I think about you all's work, a lot of what you are doing is giving you're reclaiming these materials, but you're also giving them new life. And so I wanted to know from you all kind of how, when you're going through your process and you are choosing these materials, how do you all relate to, or maybe that's not the right word, how do you all view the reclaiming, or and whether you use this term or not, but like the giving new life to these particular materials? How are you all kind of formulating, kind of like what that means to you all in real time in your process? I'm gonna use the question.
So I'll answer this in the context of me living with my grandmother. She's had a lot of stuff in her house that was collecting dust, and I'm someone I'm the artist in the house, I'm the creative person. I'm always taking something and remaking it, so having to sometimes tell her, you need to give this to me because I can make something more interesting with this, it was just in this room, sitting here, like, let me make this more, make this more. And also, another reason is because it's in my grandma's house, it has significance to me. Because that's also me putting my grandma's life into the paintings. And she was the person that showed up when I needed a place to stay. So I have to more than she can even imagine, there's another desire to pull her aspects of her life into my paintings, because it's in a way of remembering where I came from. Remembering the people who've shown up when I needed them to even make the painting. Who provided the roof that I made the painting under?
Right. No, that's facts.
For me, it is, again, it was during COVID, and I had access to comic books that I was reading, and I realized, like, mid-book Black Panther, that there aren't a whole lot of stories like this around. And so, that's interesting. And so I did a little digging, and it's like this percentage of white writers and illustrators in comic books. And now, although we're seeing a bit of a spike in the numbers of Black comic illustrators and writers and even villains and heroes, it's still just a drop in the bucket when you think about the extensive history of comic books and graphic novels. And to me, it's interrupting a narrative of underrepresentation. And taking those materials, breaking them down, and then reconstructing them into stories that speak to me because they're about me, because they're about other people who, usually don't see these stories being told. Because I didn't have anybody to talk to about this, but I'm going to put it on this page. Because it feels like this is an opportunity now for voices to be shared that may not otherwise be heard. And I want to talk about it now in this way. I may not say it, but here it is. It all happened. This is the story. And so interrupting the narrative of underrepresentation and totally representing myself and people who, may feel the same way. And so it's just the Black density of it all for me. But that's essentially what it is.
Those are fantastic answers. And then this is going to be the last question before I open it up to the audience. But a theme that when we're kind of reviewing and surveying you all's work and practice and in preparation for the show, a theme that kept coming up for me was, really too, was kind of the power in metaphor and then also how, and then accessibility. And so when I think about you all's work, I think about it as, the mediums are accessible. Again, we kind of just talked about those in reference to the entry points. But then also thinking about metaphor and the power in metaphor and the entry point that creates. So when people come to see your work, and they see, anyone can identify a twig, you know, a tree, and they're like, okay, so I see this, it's a twig, what is it doing in this work? And you know, and there's an immediate element that is identifiable. And then Noreen, you know, like with these heroes or sheroes, you know, in many of your works that you have, you know, there's an immediate connection that you make, because many of us, you know, grew up either, you know, well, or even now, you know, look at Marvel, but you know, kind of seeing these characters constantly. But now we're seeing not only a Black woman in, you know, kind of in that form, but being surrounded by identifiable cityscapes, or you know, being surrounded by water or galaxies and whatnot, and you provide these points of entry. And so I say all that, so my question is really around when you all are thinking about well, I guess two things. So when we think about your work conceptually, what do you all have in mind when kind of creating these works and thinking about connectivity with your audience? And then also, can you maybe give an example of a moment of connectivity with your audience that was impactful to you?
You go first this time.
I feel like I always talk a lot at the end, that's why anyway. So, for me, I want the authenticity to be the primary connection. I want for people to be able to look at the work and see a representation, like I said, of myself, but also have a moment of reflection for themselves. Am I answering your question? Okay. So I want that. And so an experience that I had, an example of that, is, and I'll never forget this, because it changed everything for me. Because we always, at some point or another, are going to look at ourselves and go, is this exactly the right, am I thinking the right way? Is it, you know, so I was having that moment. And it was during a solo show that I was having. And there was a young lady who came into the gallery, and she was there before I arrived. And when I walked up and she turned around, she was crying. And I thought, oh wow, you know, I don't, are you okay? I'm thinking something else is happening to get you some tissues, sis. And I did not make the connection that she was making the connection with me and with the piece. And when she said to me, when I said, can I give you some tissue? Are you okay? And she was like, I'm okay. I see myself. I see my story. This is what I'm going through. I feel like she's fighting for her life. She's on fire, but she's surviving. She was like, I feel like, and she's beautiful, and she's making it. She was like, and there was a piece she was looking at that was called Mother Nature's Sister Soldier. Yeah, it's fire, but I'm not gonna lie. But she said that, she was like, she's making, she's like, that's me right now. She was like, I'm in the fight for my life. I'm making it. I'm doing the best that I can. I see myself. And that changed then we both cried. And we hugged it out, right? And we both, all right, we still okay. But that moment changed everything for me, because it made me feel the way that I knew I wanted. I felt seen. And I felt like she felt seen. I didn't know her. This was the first time we had met. But here we were in a shared experience, yet another shared experience, right? But here we were, and she was saying, I see you, and it looks like me. And you get it. It was a mirror experience. But that changed everything for me, because I wanted that. I told you that when I started during COVID, I was looking for that, right? I was looking for a place to put my feelings. I was looking for a place to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. And someone was seeing, feeling, and hearing me, and was feeling like they were receiving the same thing from me. And I couldn't ask for anything else that was worth more than her making a purchase of it. I mean, I love it. However, it was worth just as much to me. We had that moment, and for me, that's probably been a highlight for me. And the other highlight that I would think of, the other thing I would think of is just like having my mother here now and seeing her see me. and her looking at the work that she's inspired me to be create. So I know that when she sees it, she's seeing me and she's seeing her. And so those reflective moments, having those mirrors, that's magic for me. I love that.
Thank you for sharing.
So in a lot of my works, they're self-portraits. I pull moments from my experience, and these are moments of clarity when I'm in a moment and I'm realizing something is going on, and I'm able to express this visually. So with this piece over here, I was in Reservoir Hill, and I was looking just to buy houses, and I was doing the math, and I said, it's $500,000, and I'm walking back to North and Penn, and I'm seeing zombies on the street. You know, so this amount of money doesn't remove me from me being black man walking down North Avenue. You know, having to see the glass bottles, or the burnt out buildings, or the police. I know that I'm experiencing this, and I know that my other black men are also experiencing this. So in this moment, I was thinking about just the blessing in that the blessing has to be bigger than this. You know, because I'm working so hard, and this was not what my family dreamed of. My father is from North Avenue, and as soon as he got the opportunity to leave, he left Baltimore. He wasn't coming back here, because it's a different reality when you're black and you're a black man from I call it Black Baltimore, because it's really two Baltimore. There's white Baltimore and there's black Baltimore. I'm from Black Baltimore. All right? So when I did this painting, I was reflecting on my life and where I was going, and it's a black man who is in the ghetto, but he's on a golden path. And that golden path is leading to a door, and there's a world in this door. And he has to stay focused on this path, so focused that even if he sees a crumbled dollar bill on the ground, he cannot turn around and pick it up. He has to leave it on the ground. You know, and I'm in a period of my life where I'm hustling towards my destiny. I have not achieved it yet. I am in the process. I'm running towards it. And I cannot be distracted by a little $10 bill that's crumbled on the ground. So in this piece, like in a lot of my works, I'm speaking to myself, to other black men and people who are going through this similar situation where we want to try to make it out. And that's why this painting is called Make It Out the Hood. It's a message to black men that to go stay focused on the education, get the money, and get the dream, and go towards it. And do not divert your gaze at any time. And God, that's the hand right there. The hand will protect you until you get there. And the angels and the ancestors in the distance will also protect you until you get there. And this painting, I've seen so many black men cry in front of this painting. So when I look at my work reaching the right people, I know the intended audience of this painting is for people that look just like me, that are trying to create a legacy. You know, we're trying to create something great for the future generations, and we come from certain areas that lack resources, and we have to find our way out of that environment of lack, through focus, through hard work, through staying focused. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of connecting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like I just went to church and therapy. So now, are there any questions from our audience members? Please, you can raise your hand and we'll acknowledge. Our Brother Ainsley, do I see a hand? I saw you just do this.
I was working on my art.
Okay, calisthenics and all that. Leslie, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you both so much for the presentation of this work, Thomas, for bringing them together. I think it's really amazing to see these pieces in conversation. I think both of you have such a distinct style, and you have such powerful messages. And I'm also thinking about how your powerful, deeply serious messages kind of go along with maybe the idea of play, I don't know if that it feels relevant to you, or, you know, I feel like using the graphic novel or comic book as a medium is in itself a little playful, and then also how to make that into a serious conversation. And I'm thinking about too, with your work, Mark, your style feels very playful, but I don't know if that's something that I'm thinking about, and doesn't relate to your work, but I was wondering if it does. What was that question?
I love playing with wood. Wood is something that I do very, very well. I'm proud of how I can put wood. I kind of view the painting as a way to show off what you can do, you know. And in this painting in the back by Elephant Hunter painting, that was a painting that really started my assemblage journey. And I put all these different types of wood into this painting. There's like 5 or 6 different types of wood. And when I look at the wood, it's a space where I have complete control over what goes on that piece. You know, I'm in the forest by myself. I'm trying to find the most pretty branch. Every time I put the painting up, sometimes I put new branches in it. It's always an opportunity to find an even prettier branch, or even, you know, something even prettier, you know. So I've loved how I can play with the wood in that there's no real consequence, you know. It's just art. You know, it doesn't have to look a certain way. If I choose a different branch, no one's going to say anything. I have complete control over this, so it's kind of like on an adventure. I can see what is left. You know, like those branches over there. I found when I was bringing other branches here, I found more branches on the side. So it's like, okay, the painting can look different now. Now I get to see it look a little different. So the wood allows for me to play.
So I almost felt like it was a happy accident. I would love to say that I was like, you know what, yes, I'm gonna use comic books graphic novels. However, I told you I was on a journey of my life trying to figure out how I was going to explore my creativity and how to tell stories. And so that looked so many different ways. So comic books and graphic novels was something that I was already doing. I was already reading. But the thing that I like about the usage of those materials, and the thing that I realized that I had, was something that invited people to a conversation that seemed like it wasn't going to be as in-depth as it is. So it's very approachable, right? And they're the size that they are so that you have to get close to them. That's why they're not real large. Yeah. But also the comic books, I think they give you like a friendly feel, like you don't know. You're like, oh, it's, you know, look at this, it's a character. And then you're like, oh, it's a story. And I'm like, it's a whole life there, right? It's something is definitely happening here that is calling you into a conversation. And so I think that what I have in the usage of those materials is the ability, it's approachable. I think that people feel like it's a safe space. It's colorful. It kind of calls to you in that way. So I like to call it a courageous conversation prefaced with a smile. So that's essentially what I feel like I have in using those materials. Although it didn't start off as something intentional, it's extremely intentional now.
Was there somebody or like a moment in your experience where you felt you could start to release the control involved with art? Because my process was very limited coming up. It was like a grade for how I worked with the clay. It was an expectation of how quickly we clean the brushes. We had to use a certain amount of paint. And if we were to do a project that was outside of the confines of Matisse or Picasso or whoever, or whatever period we were in at that season, it wasn't respected. So like, I think that's a lot of young Black children's experience in art class. And I've realized more recently, like I have more space to add dots to, or crayon, or color and pencil, and not consult anybody before I do it. Was that like a process in your process?
I'm self-taught. I just was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. My mama did what she wanted to do, and I'm gonna do what I want to do. And is there a wrong way to do this? I can't imagine, what that looks like. I would know it if I felt it or saw it, I guess. It wouldn't feel right. But I just do what I want to do, and I'm authentic and honest in my expressions, and that's all that I have. I did not know that I create the collages the way that I do without a substrate behind them. That's the way I've always done it. It's weaving, it is interlocking, it's some overlapping, but it's not on any kind of background. It's essentially a paper sculpture. And so I was like, I don't know, if you want to tell me it's a wrong way to do it, okay, but this is the way I'm going to do it here. And so no, I just, that's my safe space. That's where I get to be the freest. So no, I'm coloring the outside of all lines and doing all kinds of things that people probably are like, nope. But that's me though. It's looking and saying and doing exactly what my soul authentically needs it to do.
And I might add before we jump in real quick that I know for you, Noreen, you also have you also work with a lot of young people and are instilling that type of autonomy and black density?
Black density.
And black density in all these, in these young students, kind of going back to your question. So I just want to point that out for, anyone kind of also listening in the audience that, you were also instilling that in the next generation. Really, I've seen it in person, so I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, so a lot of young black youth don't know that that's a space that they can unapologetically take up. They don't understand that, they can be whoever they want to be. That can look however they want it to look. And I feel like, oh my gosh, we're gonna tell kids how to color? What is that? How do you color wrong? How do you do that the wrong way? That's just the wrong place to correct somebody, right? And so, yeah, I love the opportunity to encourage young people to, number one, free up, and number two, just let themselves authentically express themselves. And you would be surprised how many of them just don't know what I mean. When I say do it your way, they're like, what do you mean? I mean, do it your way, right? And the things they come up with, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I was blessed enough to have that coming up, and also I was also bold enough to take the space. I was like, nope, this is me. I mean, and my mother and my father always said, like, we don't know where you came from. We don't know where we got you from, right? I'm like, but I'm looking at you too. Mm-hmm. And this is where I got it from. It's y'all. It's really y'all. So I feel blessed to be able to work with young people and do that. I'm sorry, I told y'all I'm talking.
No, you're wrong.
So you said something that I resonate with of just learning how to do it your way. In the art world, we're always looking at our colleagues, and our colleagues are doing amazing stuff. All right, and sometimes I've tried to do the work like my colleagues. I can't do it like them. I've tried to. I can only do it how I do it, and I've got to learn how to do it the best. I've got to learn how to master my own style. I do it my own way. I do it in a way that no one else can do it. And I've spent time trying to look at some of the other superstars if they were anointed to do it their way. I cannot do it their way. So I resonate with this a lot. When I allow myself to play, normally comes after I've been working in my studio for many hours, and the time normally hits around 3 a.m. Everyone is out of the art building that I'm in, and I'm up just listening to music, and that's my most creative time. That's when I start putting stuff up and playing around and seeing, I allow myself to be really creative at this time when it seems like everyone else is sleeping, and there's no one awake that could give me judgment on what I'm doing. Everyone that could judge it is sleeping. It's just me awake in this building. So that's when I think I allow myself to be the most creative and to be the most flexible with the time. And I think there is something to working on your piece in the wee hours. You know, there's something that can be gained from that. You know, putting, you know, not just working 3 or 4 hours, but like working like 6, 7, 8 hours, like actually staying with the painting, you know, continuing with the same painting, turning the painting upside down, looking at it upside down for an hour, you know, looking at it from the sideways. You know, there's a lot that could just be gained from really spending the time with that painting and going through different parts of the day with that painting. And being somewhat sleepy when you're looking at that painting too. Sometimes it's a good time to be creative. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Well, I'm gonna, since I have you all's attention,
May I ask a question? If it's,
you say answer the question?
I said, may I ask a question?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, we got time.
All
We got
right,
time for you.
Thank you. Amazing work, Mark and Noreen. Something that came up as I was looking through this exhibition was the word intimacy. And I talked to Noreen earlier about it, especially with the title Soft Landing and exploring your own stories and the healing power of storytelling. So I was curious as to how intimacy reflects in your work, in your practice, whether it's your material approach or your image making processes, or the stories that you're telling, or the spaces that you're creating with your work. It's clear that there is an intimacy that is present in these works, especially with the technique of collaging with the micro and macro. So I'm curious to see, also hear and experience, outside of just seeing the work from you both, how intimacy connects or resonates with you in all these different realms.
I think being intimate starts with painting what you know. You know, we may want to paint everything we want to paint, but we know certain things. So with my work, I try to paint things that I've felt directly, that I've seen directly, that I've experienced directly. I'm in the painting, or I'm the person behind the camera taking the photo of the painting. I try to pull from what I know or what I've experienced, and I don't try to paint things that I'm not connected to.
Yes, but that is not our ministry. Yes, stick to what you know. I tell stories that are true. I've lived them. Someone I know has lived them. We've talked about it. We've felt it. And with the materials, I spend a lot of time with the materials. Just in the process, I look through book after book. And so I gain like a sort of Rolodex of materials that I've seen to a degree. And so what I'll do is, while I'm creating, sometimes I'll remember where I saw certain things, because I took the time to actually learn what's between the pages, besides knowing the stories. Because it's not that all of the books are books that I purchase. Sometimes are gifted to me, or so they're given to me. But I'll spend time with the actual books. I'll look through them, and then I tear out certain things that speak to me. It'll just be something about the colors, something about, none of those things show up the way that they look in the book by the time I've done breaking them down. They're micro collage pieces. But even that process of once I source the materials, and then it's a whole story in front of me, I start to see something happening. All of that to me is very intimate. It's a conversation that's happening between the materials and myself. They're talking to me saying, hey, here's a color story. Hey, this is a story that we're going to tell. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there at all saying, hey, this is how I want to experience you. Instead, it's like, Noreen, this is how you're going to experience me, right? And then the story starts to happen, and it's the entire thing is intimate. The whole thing, it's a whole relationship. We're interlocked the entire time. Literally, it's the shape is organic. It's hey, we want to be a blue person. Okay, all right, we're gonna be blue. Okay, I see the color tell a story. I see it. And it's very interesting just the way. It's almost like pieces are going, hey, pick me. Pick me. I want to be an orb. I want to make me a piece of a so-and-so, right? So it's literally like a conversation. It's like the pieces are telling me what story I'm making. And again, I'm just available for the conversation. I'm available to be a vessel through which the story can be told. So the entire thing is intimate. I feel extremely blessed and really, what's another word that I'm looking for? Anyway, I feel extremely blessed to be trusted to do that, because I feel like it's a very special thing. I don't think that to hear materials talking to you, or just to feel that way, to stick to the story, like you said, to spend time with it, hours upon hours, looking at it, and knowing that you're putting a part of yourself into it that other people are going to look at and be able to identify. The entire thing is intimate. Okay. and then when I was 7, no.
I didn't think that was like gonna wrap it up. Like I was
No.
like, it seemed like you were like.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know, I'm here again. Yep.
All right. Well, from there, I want to say thank you all for doing this show, and this artist talk. What we have here with the the Baltimore creative community, it's something that's very special, and and like I said, there's no matter where you are in the world, this is a very special place. So I just want to say thank you. Just gotta have that on my heart. But now, can we give these amazing artists